So I'm Hannah. This is our first webinar in our flight plan series. So anything that comes under flight plan is specifically designed for our customers to help you get the most out of Receptive. So look out for this sort of content coming out more in 2018. So today is all about customer engagement. The features Receptive has today, best practices around those, a Q&A as this topic's been coming up quite a bit with our CSMs, and then grand finale because it's the holiday season or something like that. We'll give you like a cheeky sneak peek of things we've got planned to help with customer engagement even more in like the first quarter of next year. And Ali Mayhan's here as well, actually. She just joined me. She's VP of Customer Success here.
Hi, everyone.
So she's going to hop in
now
and again. Are you actually?
Yeah, always.
So first up, what features we have today to drive customer engagement? You might be familiar with some of these, you might not, so we'll run through them. Start with some basic stuff and kind of go from there. So first off, make sure you've got Receptive embedded in your SaaS product with a prominent link or button. This can actually make a huge difference, the amount of customers that start giving you feedback. Quite a few of you do use Receptive internally and track feedback through customer-facing teams. So if you're doing that but want to build a case to let customers self-serve, then I'd highly recommend our Feedback Loop podcast, which is actually run by Ali. I'm going to share a link to the episode after the webinar. But the one you can see on the screen there is a couple of customers talking this through. So one who lets customers self-serve with Receptive, and another customer who's like thinking of taking that step. And then in the right, we've got a screenshot of our widget, which we released earlier this year. So we've got a few examples of links from SaaS products, but I'm actually going to show you now the kind of widget because it's got a slight edge over kind of links just from your products. I'm going to hop over into that and hopefully I won't lose any of you on the screen share. Let me just check the Q&A. Okay, no one said anything, so I assume not. So this is the widget. This is kind of like a pretend site, just ignore the kind of nice pictures in the background if you wish to do so. And this is the widget thing we released earlier. So you can present that however you like in your SaaS product, and it's really cool because every time you release something new, you get this little kind of orange dot, which is a little call to action prompting customers to go and take a look at what you've been up to. So if we open that up, you can see at the top, they can see what's new, and then it gives users like the full Receptive experience. They can suggest feedback, prioritize all of their requests just down here. And then they can also see things requested by others and the status of those and the requests they want as well. And this does actually open up into the full kind of web page or portal view with one click as well. So that's really something to consider if you think it'd be a good fit for you. It's actually just available from your account in settings. So if we hop over, I'm now in the kind of admin side of the account. And if you go into settings here, if you haven't got admin permission, go and find out who the account holder is and they'll be able to do this. If you go into settings, you'll see customer view. And it's really neat. You can toggle between these two options. You can change the text as well to feedback, for example. You can change the color and then where it's placed. So if we save those changes, refresh this page, you'll see now we've now got a tab saying feedback, so that's pretty cool. So that's just something to consider. Oh, what's this telling me? Chat. Oh, chat's not there. Can you tell I'm new to Zoom, everybody? Can you just submit suggestions right in the widget? Yes, they certainly can.
Great question.
So if we open the widget up again, you can see we've got make a suggestion. So just like in the full version, it's exactly the same form. And for anyone who doesn't know, you can now customize this entire form yourself, so you can make sure you're getting like really good information from the customer as well. So hope that answers the question. Just ping up on chat and I will find it again if you need to. Thank you, Ali.
Yeah.
Anything?
That's what I'm here for.
Anything to add about that stuff?
No, that was good.
Cool. So hopped back over into the presentation. So the second thing you can do is you can make an announcement about your product feedback process. We've got templates available to help with this, which we'll issue with the recording. And here's some kind of standard things people will do. They'll use chat widgets, update emails, prospect marketing emails, in-app notifications, and blog posts. I think just remember it's not a one-off thing. If you've had Receptive for a while, it's still a good idea to pop a note in your newsletter now and again, share a link through social media, or whichever kind of thing you use to engage with your customers. A little bonus tip is anything public facing is actually a really, really good sales tool to let prospects know that you're taking feedback seriously. It's a massive, massive selling point, and a lot of customers actually use the receptive feedback process as part of sales. It is a really good selling point. A market that you react well to customer feedback, it's a huge advantage for SaaS companies if you are able to do that.
Yeah, if your marketing team isn't using Receptive as something that they talk about and promote ongoing, then that's something to maybe talk to them about and see if they have some space in their emails or announcements that they can share more about.
Oh, I missed one. Social media appeared on the end of the slide. I knew I'd not clicked enough. Third point, this is like something we introduced not long ago, actually, which has worked really well for customer engagement as well. And that is to create a CEO or kind of VP video. It can take a little organizing, but you can just grab a phone, that works great. And the time spent is really worth the effort for the amount of buy-in and engagement that creates. It's good for getting the company aligned, and the customers again can see that you're taking feedback seriously. To create a little video, share it with your customers, pop it on your blog, on social media. And there's a couple of really nice examples, some of our favorites that we've linked to here. So by all means, go and have a look. They're only about a minute long, but can be very effective.
And you're right when you said you can use your phone. Bridal Lives was actually shot on an iPhone, so it doesn't take a lot of time or effort to do these. You can just kind of do it when you're launching Receptive or when your next marketing announcement is going out.
Cool. So there's the fourth point really is to have a look at customer engagement emails. There's a feature in Receptive called customer engagement email, and it's an email you can send out in 2 clicks on a regular basis. So I'll show you how that works. There's a real mixture of people using this, I think, Callie, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
So to get to the engagement email, you just go into customers in your Receptive account, and you'll see there's this big button here, engage more customers. If you click that, this is where you can create the email, and it includes recent releases, requests that you're gathering feedback on, and that customers current priorities as well. So it's much more effective than simply sending announcements because it's 100% personalized to each user, and it allows your customers to log in directly from that email with one click as well. And you can obviously preview them all as we're showing here as well. A good tip, I think, from a process point of view is decide who's going to be in charge of sending this email, and pop a reminder in the calendar, or you can do what we've done. We've got a little Slack bot that pops up. Is it quarterly? So I don't even know. I just listen to Slack. Slack tells me. It kind of pops up in our product channel, and we know that that's the time that our head of product goes in and decides if we're going to send this email out. There's not really any best practices around how often to send the engagement email. That depends on you. But if you'd like some help with that, reach out to your CSM and they will talk you through it. So the final kind of point.
Is that macaroni and cheese?
I don't know if that's macaroni and cheese. Is it just cheese? It was
That just made me hungry.
Plastic cheese. You want it?
Hannah's webinars always
make you hungry. Thanks, Sally. And the final point in this section is just to use Receptive. So much like you wouldn't expect engagement straight after a first date, you might, I don't know, it's a bit odd. You shouldn't expect engagement with customer feedback right away. It really is a process. And that's because customers need to trust that you'll genuinely listen to their requests and keep them informed as you go through. So loads of SaaS companies ask for product feedback, and it ends up in that massive feedback black hole we talk about. But there's a lot you can do to show them that you're different, and that's by just using Receptive. So things like, there's that nasty black hole. Just review requests as they come in and move them to awaiting feedback. And then when your product teams reviewed requests and made a decision, just make sure that it gets updated. So again, we'll have a look at that in Receptive. So we're going to hop over. So if we take a look like inside a request, one thing that people don't know you can do necessarily is that you can update the status message without moving where the piece of feedback's up to. So if we had a little update on this, we can hit planned again, even though it's already planned. Get your update, I can't spell, get your update in there. And then you can see here, you can email that out to the people who are subscribed to that request if you want to. If you don't, just uncheck that box. And that is now updated. And the nice thing about that is when a customer comes back in, or even a team member comes in and searches for this request, they can see exactly where it's up to and what is going on. Remember as well that customers who care about requests get updates. So it's like a huge time saver because they're not having to contact support, they're not having to contact customer success. And you shouldn't worry about like notifications going out to customers. You can turn them off, as I just showed you. And just remember they're only getting emails about things they actually care about. If you're a product person or you're in a CSM and you subscribe to everything, you will be getting more emails than your customers, but you can control that as well. Little side note, well, quite a big side note, I guess, is the process can be tricky here. The whole reviewing feedback with the product team and getting it communicated back to customers can be tricky, especially when you've got product feedback coming in through customer facing teams. So if you don't have an agreed process, you can end up in a situation where you can't set those customer expectations well. For example, if product teams are reviewing customer feedback quarterly, that is fine. You can use that information to set the expectation with your customer base. And that is honestly all the customer needs, especially if they've got access to Receptive. They can see what's going on, they can see what you've released, what's coming up in your roadmap. And we did like a whole webinar about this a couple of weeks ago, so I'll send that out. But yeah, again, any questions around process, talk to your CSM and they will help you out. So just hopping back to those status updates, simply using Receptive drives engagement as I mentioned a second ago. So when a customer receives an update, the trust increases and they realise you're paying attention to them, which is brilliant. We did a bit of analysis on, what happens when you update or release a feature. And generally, I mean, this is a pattern that we see. Logins increase, votes increase, and new requests do as well. So basically, the more you use Receptive to manage customer feedback, the more engagement you see. It's like a little snowball effect. And like I say, don't forget, underneath the surface, you're really building that trust up, and you're actually saving your teams hours, days, and weeks of time as well.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Ellie?
Yeah, I just say that on the this data that we pulled from some of our customers after they release features, after they send out the engagement email, that engagement really builds on itself, like that snowball effect that Hannah just mentioned. It doesn't just have a little spike and then kind of go back down to to what it was before. Every one of those activities actually creates a new level of engagement. It kind of just keeps building on top of what was already there. So you can get lots and lots of engagement by following these steps. It makes a really big impact, especially the engagement email. And that's the kind of stuff your customers love hearing from you anyway. That's always the most popular thing is what's coming up on your roadmap and things like that. So people jump all over those emails. Don't feel like it's annoying or on top of the other stuff they're sending.
Cool. And then in terms of just using Receptive generally as well, there's a couple of other things that I think some customers are and aren't using. There's the road mapping side. and also the release log. So just to show you a good example of how the road mapping works. Again, another feature we released today. Today? Did we do it today? No.
I don't know.
This
What
year.
did we release today?
I don't know. Is you can have multiple roadmaps, which is super, super handy. Because if you think about all the stakeholders in your business, like our sales team want to know different things to like anyone at VP level. And then the same goes for your customers. So you've got access to multiple roadmaps. So it's a great opportunity to create a roadmap that gets your customers really, really excited. So I'm going to go in and show you how that works. It's going to name this customer roadmap here. And then you can see here, you set the visibility. So I'd like customers and my teams to be able to view this roadmap. And then it's really simple. You've got a load of themes, which you can completely customize. So let's call this one design. And I'll add one more in, add a theme here, and we'll have, I don't know why I'm thinking about emails today, but we'll go with emails. And then it's simply a case of picking the best requests off your roadmap that customers will relate to and get excited about. One pot recipes, I don't know what's with the recipe theme. There you go. Food is exciting. And you can like move these along, make them last for a longer amount of time. So you can just go ahead, grab whatever you need to, search and get them on your roadmap. And then you can add some dividers. So when it comes to customers, you don't want to be making really like weekly commitments to release things. So a good idea might be, things that you've got coming soon. So I'll pop that over here. Another example might be, in progress. And then you can simply save that. And then it means when your customers are in your feedback portal in Receptive, they can access this, they can see what you're working on and the status as well. Can hover over and see, this one's building. And the nice thing about this as well is when that gets released, it will update customers who follow it, and it changes the status in your roadmap as well. So it's never out of date, which is really cool.
Another cool aspect of using this kind of display is when customers come in and see maybe not what you're building at the moment, but the things that are coming up next, they'll actually go and put their use cases in there. So you get that feedback building up, for your dev team before they start working on it, which can be really, really powerful for them. People always think of things once you say you're going to start building it. It's really funny.
Yeah, no, it's completely true.
They want to make sure that they get their use case covered.
And release log is brilliant as well. It's really simple, but it's actually really powerful. Perhaps like me, Ali. What am I on about? So this literally, it just shows everything you release, and you'll be surprised how many customers actually go and see this. Now, top tip, something we've talked about a lot with our customers recently, which is you guys, is don't forget that your releases aren't just things your customers have asked for. So if you've done something, no matter how small, if you think, yeah, that's neat, our customers should hear about that, you can just go ahead, raise a request in here, new feedback.
Why don't you put in there what we built today, Hannah?
What was that? Something we've done. I'm just going to write the word test now so I don't, which product it belongs to. Let's stick some modules in. There we go. Add that in. So if we change this to released, there might not be any customers following it, but now that appears, here we go, look, that's on our release log. So customers have visibility, and that information gets pulled into that engagement email I showed earlier as well. So don't forget that you can go in and add cool stuff you're working on, even if that request hasn't come from a customer in the first place. Cool, so let's summarize that section.
Don't forget to send in any questions you have, or in the Q&A or in the chat. As we go through, we'll address them.
We will indeed.
We'll try to.
So the things we covered there were Embed Receptive. If it's already in there, make sure the link's nice and prominent. Announce your product feedback process, like ongoing, not just as a one-off thing. If you can get that CEO or VP or anyone, in fact, anyone could do that video, get it out there into your marketing, take a look at that engagement email feature, send it out regularly, and then get that process right. So we've had a few questions come up about this webinar already. So I've got, I think, 3 or 4 of those. So I'll run through them, but chuck your questions in chat and we'll get to those as well. So this is one we got in after our last webinar, actually. Since our rollout of Receptive in September, we had a huge influx of ideas to begin with, but now we're not seeing as much engagement. So this graph is real customer data taken from one of our case studies, and this isn't a one-off. It's typical of what companies see when they open up a product feedback channel for customers. You do get that influx at first, but after that, the nature of the engagement with customers builds and changes beyond just new requests, as you can see here. So that green line running along the bottom is new requests coming in. That tends to stay steady, but all the other coloured areas show like huge amounts of customer activity and engagement. So that'll be customers looking at your roadmap, looking at the release log, prioritising requests to keep your data fresh. I remember before Receptive, you'd normally get status update requests or questions about plan development into your customer facing teams, CS support, or your customers. In fact, most of them would just stay completely in the dark. So the measures of engagement that are much more important and exciting are those ones, and they're kind of like the drivers rather than new requests alone. If you want to see this data from your account, just contact your CSM and we'll get it sent out to you. And I talked about sneak peek for 2018. One thing we're planning is a lot more analytics around this data. So you'll be able to access this sort of thing in your own Receptive account. So look out for that too. Do you have anything to add, Ali, over?
No.
Cool. The second one, how should we treat requests that have been sat in awaiting feedback for some time?
I love this question.
Is this your favourite?
It's my favourite.
Do you want to answer this?
I don't know the answer.
You do what? So I'd say, like, first off, don't worry. That feedback loop podcast that I mentioned earlier has tons of detail on this at like a really like practical level. And we've got some help docs to share, as well as, you know, how to say no to requests that you're never going to implement in your product. But I think the answer to this very much comes back to the expectation setting with your customers. We're actually starting to recommend now that you create what we call a product feedback policy, PFP. If you want the catchy
Hashtag.
thing.
It's going to be trending before you know it.
Then you can share that so everyone's aligned, and that document explains how you use the feedback you receive. So if you're just announcing Receptive, your CSM will be working on your policy with you during onboarding. But if you've been a customer for a while, we'd strongly recommend you create a document. Again, we'll send some things out to help with that. But we've got some brilliant examples of ones customers have already created. So questions like, how long will it be before the product team review my idea? Again, they're just setting that expectation. Items are reviewed by product specialists. If they're in the top 10%, if they're top priority requests from customers, they get reviewed and you'll get the status update. That policy will probably be different for you, but this is just an example. My request hasn't been reviewed yet and I submitted it 6+ months ago. What can I do? Again, it's setting expectation. We've not reviewed your item yet, but if it's a high priority for you, make sure it's top of your list, make sure your request is clear, make sure you comment on that idea as well. So it's all about expectation setting. If the customer knows how their feedback is used and dealt with, then having things in awaiting feedback is never an issue. Do you have anything?
No, that's awesome. That's perfect.
Cool. Please do just jump in, Ali.
I think one thing I would add is a lot of times product teams will think that an idea is a good idea, but they know they're not going to build it anytime soon. So they leave it in awaiting feedback. And I'd recommend actually moving that into planned and making the status clear that it's going to be on the backlog for a while. It's going to be on the back burner. But you do like that idea, and that is somewhere where you're taking the product. So instead of just leaving that out in awaiting feedback, you can say, yeah, we do like that, but you know, it's not going to be built tomorrow. So just set those expectations, but get them excited about where you're taking the product as well. Yeah,
definitely. I just wanted to pop a little bit in here about, you know, what using Receptive to generate good engagement does for you. I've actually grabbed this slide from the last webinar because it helps understand, you know, what this does for your product team, basically. So the data is used in 2 ways mainly. It brings the voice of the right customers into roadmap problems that you've already got scheduled. So if you understand which feedbacks come from large customers versus small, or which feedbacks come from free trialers versus paying customers, then product team can use that context to make good decisions. Another good example of that is if you've got a design project on your roadmap to enhance UI for enterprise paying customers, then you wouldn't want your product team acting on a ton of feedback from free trialers. And that's all done through the reports in Receptive, which I'll hop into in a second. And then the second point as well is all of this customer engagement generates data that helps inform what goes into your roadmap in the future. So if you're collecting good feedback data with the context attached to it, and you've got great customer engagement, the product team can use that information with confidence when they're planning the next quarter out, or whatever time frame you need. So I'll hop into reports. It's just over here. Ali, actually, could you explain a bit about, because you've been encouraging from a process point of view, product teams to go in and use the reports as the driver rather than new feedback that's come in. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so what we talk about, what I've been talking about with some of our customers is, let's say you have a few different stakeholders from different teams that you want to be able to get their feedback, but then track it over time. So maybe there's a tag that you add to, you have the customer success team track their top 10 requests. So they can, over the course of 2018, they can keep track of those 10 things. But then what you can do is drill down into those and then compare it to what customers have actually been asking for. So you can actually compare the strategic and the long-term and those big projects. And you can take the use cases that come in from customers and compare that data to see what you should build. So you kind of take your strategy and align it with that data, but then also kind of fill in the gaps with use cases and details from customers.
Cool, thanks, Sally. So the final question we had in as well ahead of the webinar was, what are the engagement metrics we can see in Receptive today? Now, honestly, not absolutely heaps. So just to make you aware, if you, from your dashboard, you've got this metrics section here. And engagement is one of the areas that you can look at, but it's very basic today. We've just got like the most engaged customers in the last 30 days, and from a team point of view as well. So it is quite basic at the moment. But again, 2018, we're going to be doing a lot of work around this. We've got cohort and trend analysis planned. So things like, I'd be really interested to know, for example, what is engagement like with the last cohort of new customers we've brought in over the last 6 months. We're also going to add things like the ability to map internal team requests and sales requests against customers, and then align all of that back to your strategy so that you know you're acting on feedback that's really helping the company meet its goals. I've actually got a screenshot of the kind of strategy dashboard that we're building out. Which is just here. This is just an example. This is in progress at the moment, but you'll be able to do things like see the percentage of requests that are building that align with various strategies in your organization. And this is part of a much bigger project called the CEO dashboard, which we're also in the process of kind of speccing out internally. If you do have any questions, pop them in and we'll get to them. But to summarize, the nature of engagement really does change over time. It's not just about the number of requests, it's about all that other stuff I showed you in that graph. The process is key, so talk to your CSM for help with this, or your product feedback policy that we're introducing, which you'll be hearing a bit more about. And then obviously use Receptive to give us feedback and requests for things you'd like to see built out when it comes to engagement. So the last bit. Cheeky sneak peek, let's call it that.
What we've all been waiting for.
What you've all been waiting for. So first off, I think it's really nice when you get to know a team a bit better. So this is Carrie and Rob. They've been leading efforts on customer engagement improvements in Receptive, which we're going to release early next year. So Carrie leads the UX and design teams, and Rob is a senior developer, and they've been very much leading this area. So we've got some Marvel screenshots, which I'll hop over into. Goodbye, Rob and Carrie.
Bye.
Bye. Here we go. So I'm going to run you through some scenarios around customer engagement. So scenario one, actually, I've got a little side note here that one of the top priority requests in Receptive is the ability to bulk edit status of requests. So you can see here that's actually been built in as part of this project as well. So that's pretty cool.
Yay.
I know Ali
very
is
excited.
So when it comes to customer engagement, what you'll be able to do in the browse section, this is actually meant to be in browse, but never mind. You've got all of your different tags you've created here. You can filter down to whatever you need based on your tags. So again, we'll use a design project as an example. You can filter down to all the feedback relating to design projects. And then you can just go ahead and check the requests that you specifically want to hear from customers about, and then send those requests in an email to them. I'll run you through the email process very, very quickly. So you can send an email to every customer who is following one of those requests that you're sending out. So you can include the links to the request, and then the subject and email body is entirely customizable. And then you get to see like a nice little preview, the requests you're sending out, which are important to you and who they're going out to. And then you can just go ahead and get those sent. Just going to have a look at this little question here. Oh, thanks, Tiffany. Brilliant. Thank you. And then you can see the second option there as well is at any point you can send an email to a custom list of users. So if you want to send all of that feedback about design to a specific group, like your enterprise customers or your most engaged customers, then again, you can go through this, select recipients in either users or accounts. And again, it's exactly the same workflow as I've just shown you there. So you can go ahead and send that. A couple of other scenarios we're covering as well. And again, all of this information has come from our reporting. We've kind of pulled all the customer feedback together and created this. So thank you everyone for your help with that. So scenario 2 is that you want to directly email customers who are following a particular request. So we'll get this one here. So in Receptive, as you all know, this is the accounts or the customers following that request. And again, you can see you can mail them directly. So great examples and use cases are if you want to like drum up a like customer group to get on the phone with you, if you want to get more comments, if you want to understand pain points better, whatever you need basically. So it's super simple. And the third scenario, which I'll share with you, is from the customer section. So thinking about this in a slightly different way. If you go into customers, hit an account. So this is the screen where you can see all of the unreleased requests a account has and the status of them and what you've released for them. Go down here, again, really simple workflow. You can either email all users in a customer account, or you can email a custom list of users from that account as well. So I hope that helps give you a bit of an idea of how we're going to help with engagement.
So flexible. I love it.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Covers every situation.
That was the plan. So carry on, Robert back. So flexible emailing to help with customer engagement is a huge thing we're building out like right now. Automation of request status is another huge one. Do you want to talk about that a bit? The awaiting feedback, like automating.
Yeah, so what we want to be able to do is basically take that triage process off the plate of your product team or your customer facing teams, whoever's managing those items when they first come in. The idea is that there's some custom rules that you can set up to basically respond to those things, pull in some insights from your roadmap, talk about the other things you're building, and be able to automatically respond to customers, thank them for their feedback when it first comes in. So really just lightening the load and then being able to use Receptive just when you need the data and making it so much easier.
That is the plan. I love it. And then deeper analytics. So that is that was the best way I could describe this broad set of kind of like big data, trend, cohort analysis stuff we're working on in the background here as well. So there's going to be some really, really cool stuff coming out there. Like, imagine getting an email saying, oh, hi product owner, did you know that 20% of what you're working on doesn't align with your product strategy? That'd be like, no, not good. So that sort of thing. And then finally, often overlooked, but a huge part of what we're doing in product development is releasing loads of little UI improvements and fixing niggles that actually make a huge difference to you. And that's one of the beauties of Receptive. It captures all of that really nicely. And I'm actually running a podcast with Pierre Grenier, who's head of the Voice of the Customer program for Zendesk. That will be in February, I believe, where we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail as well. So finally, we have loads of resources available. As I said, this is the first in the Flight Plan series, so look out for more of this sort of thing coming up next year, content design just for customers. Hit the resources section, there's absolutely tons in there, podcasts, webinars, books, all sorts. And obviously contact your CSM if there's any of this you want to go through in more detail about your specific situation, or email me directly. I always like to hear from people. So it's just hannah@receptive.io.
And also email us your problems or your concerns, because that's where we get the ideas for these webinars. So so send those over, and don't feel bad. We like to hear all of it, the good and the bad.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Cool. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope it's been useful, and we're going to be running these sessions kind of every month, I think, from after Christmas. So we'll be in touch.
Yeah. Thank you everyone so much.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.